Do you suck at mid, but still have to play it sometimes? Yes. When you do go mid, do you get dumpstered because you're dog shit? Yes, I do. What if I told you that there is a secret build that is easy to play, always wins lane, and is blatantly overpowered? I'd watch the entire video. Then, let me introduce you to the goofy-ass Bane build that is currently rampaging its way through pro-level pubs. Oh, and by the way, you're going mid, not support. Anyway, let's get started. As usual with the weird builds, highlight mid and hover over the normie shit like Quap and Lina. There is one weird thing with this build though compared to the other builds that I've done, and that's the pick order. Even though mids are usually the last pick in pub drafts, I would actually suggest picking Bane mid in the second pick phase. The reasoning here is this guy. Because this spell has been stupidly overbuffed, it is physically impossible for Bane to lose lane. And also worth noting, most Bane hard counters are first phase picks. Picking early means that your carry won't be counterpicked. So when your team reports you on account of picking Bane mid, at least your carry will commend you.
Commended for leadership and friendliness.
To start, grab the typical universal guy items and head mid with an obs. You'll be using this to spam this on the enemy dude until he rage quits.
I just came to and I can't take this shit no more, man.
So it's crucial to place this ward well. The good news is, Bane has 400 extra night vision because he's Freddy Krueger or some shit like that.
You can run but you can't hide, bitch.
So you can safely walk up to the enemy tower and do the tower trick to check for an enemy ward. For anyone who is not privy to the tower trick, here's how it works. Tier 1 towers in Dota have 700 attack range, but during nighttime, they have 600 vision range. This means that you can hold Alt to see the tower attack range and walk within 100 units of the radius. If the tower attacks you, it means there is a ward on top of you. If the tower does not attack you, it means there is no ward and you are safe to slam down your ward without being seen. Let's break down what to do in both of these scenarios. If the tower attacks you, you need to de-ward. How do you do it? Stand here, and then here. If the tower hits you only on the right, then the ward is over here, so you can place the sentry right here. If the tower only hits you on the left, then you can place the sentry ward here. If it hits you on both sides, then you can place the sentry in the middle. The formula on Dire is similar, but with this spot and this spot. One caveat on Dire is that sometimes people place a ward on this high ground, but you can check for this ward by standing in this spot. Congratulations! You can now de-ward mid. In terms of warding for yourself, usually people who don't see you ward will lazily plop a sentry ward here because it's the middle. So, I would advise warding somewhere around the perimeter. Usually, the closer to the enemy tower, the less they expect it, and therefore the better it is. Now that you have great vision, let's talk laning. Once you roll up to lane, drag creep aggro to your ranged creep. As the ranged creeps are going down, enfeeble the enemy guy and slam him until the ranged creeps are within deny range. Here are the two scenarios. 1. If they're going for the last hit on your ranged creep, then deny it. 2. If they're going for the deny on their ranged creep, then CS it. You will win this trade every single time, because A, Enfeeble is OP, and B, Bane is a universal hero, so he has big fat damage. Rinse and repeat this exact process on every single wave. Congratulations, you have just learned how to win lane on Bane. Well, actually, there are a couple of other rules, but trust me, they're easy as balls. Rule number 1, other than Enfeeble, hold your spare skill points. In an ideal world, your skill build is 404. Why? Because this ability was buffed in 7.34 to give you attack speed on the unit who is nightmared. Plus, more importantly, any damage Bane deals does not wake up the sleeping unit. This huge change means that the solo kill potential with Nightmare, combined with Spirit Vessel and Enfeeble, for example, is incredible. So, you want these two abilities maxed out as soon as possible. However, Brain Sap is still a god tier laning ability, and Nightmare costs a shitload of mana. So, hold the skill points in case you need them for a clutch situation. Rule number 2, at about 3 to 4 minutes, start spamming Enfeeble off cooldown. At this timing, there are a few things that are now true. 1, you have a bottle, and access to plenty of runes because Nightmare is one long-ass stun. 2, Enfeeble will be level 2 or 3, and therefore almost permanent in terms of uptime. 3, you're universal, and you have levels. So, you right-click harder than the enemy guy, guaranteed. unless they're also universal. All of these things mean that Enfeeble's job transitions from ranged creep securer to therapy securer, because your opponent is gonna need anger management once you're done spamming the shit on them. Once you hit level 6 and pick up your Urn of Shadows, early to mid game begins, and you will begin rotating between two distinct modes. Mode number 1, Soul Collection. Mode number 2, Gold Collection. Let's take a look at this one first. The condition for this mode is simple. Is Fiend's Grip off cooldown? Okay, then go kill somebody. How do you do it? Press Smoke. When you run into an enemy hero, an ideal scenario is that you start with Nightmare, Enfeeble, Spirit Vessel, and all that good stuff, so that way maybe you don't have to use Fiend's Grip. However, despite Nightmare having a longer cast range than Fiend's Grip, it has a way shittier cast animation. So, if the guy that runs into you has any way of getting away quickly, then always Fiend's Grip first. Do not be a greedy bastard. Speaking of greedy bastards, let's talk about mode number 2, Gold Collection. When you don't have Fiend's Grip, you farm. On Bane, you are always cool with farming, because this hero's late game is, well, you literally become a carry. How do you farm? It's honestly the most brainless thing possible, and it wouldn't work on any other hero. Most heroes in Dota cannot just sit mid and farm, because it is far too dangerous. Bane, however, can safely farm anywhere against anyone because you can spam Enfeeble on people, you have extended night vision, and worst case, you can Nightmare a guy and walk away. So, the general rule of thumb is you can pick a lane and sit in it, and then hit creeps with your insane base damage, zoning whatever enemy guy is trying to farm there with Enfeeble. But while you're doing this, you need to make sure that you follow this one rule. That's it, just one. Do not TP to a lane to farm. This hero is an amazing counter rotator, even without Fiend's Grip. And having your TP available is exactly what makes sitting in a lane and farming not a stupid thing to do. Because otherwise, the enemy team, if they're good, will see that you TP'd somewhere and then murder your team elsewhere. If you find that you are in a game where this counter-rotation TP just never seems to happen, aka the enemy team is AFK, then this is exactly when you pick up a Midas, usually after your Urn or Spirit Vessel. Once it hits about 15 minutes into the game, you become GLaDOS. In other words, you use portals and kill people. I'm pretty sure that's what GLaDOS does, whatever.
I don't kill people, I exterminate pests. And shut the fuck up, Jenkins.
Anyway, your job is to go to one side of the map using the portal and try to find the guy that's farming on his own. If there's anything that I've learned in my years of Dota, it's that there is always a guy that is farming on his own. Let your team know in advance that you're going to murder that guy. When you find him, Nightmare him, use Enfeeble and Vessel and begin beating ass. By the end of Nightmare, your team may show up and you can kill the guy without using Grip. But when your team inevitably disappoints you, grip the guy and solo kill him. If you don't find a guy farming, or run into a bunch of people, then use the portal or a TP scroll and search for the guy that is alone on the other side of the map. And to do this better, your item build, after Vessel Midas of course, will be Aghanim Scepter and Silver Edge. Aghanims is usually the better choice because it's good for both pickoffs and team fighting, but Silver Edge is amazing if you find that you're doing mostly pickoffs. If there's loads of stuff to dispel in the game, then Manta Style is actually a great choice as well. Late game options are typical universal hero items. Hurricane Pike is good if they have some shit like Monkey King ult that you want to stay out of with attack range and mobility. Scotty is great if they have some healing guy like Morphling or Alchemist, and Daedalus is good if you just want raw damage. Ideally, you have all of these items in your inventory at the end of the game. And while this hero does enjoy running around and solo killing people, at some point your team is going to clash with the enemy team. So when this happens, how do you play fights? Easy. Step 1, Nightmare at backliner. Step 2, Enfeeble their carry. Step 3, grip their mid or their carry, usually the guy that uses BKB. Congratulations, you've just controlled 3 guys in one fight, so you probably won the fight.
You know you in this life, that is life, and you live.
Okay, before we finish, let's quickly do a lightning round where I talk about the most important tips and tricks that I've learned on Bane mid. Trick number 1, Nightmare grants 1 second of invulnerability. This means that you can and should use it to save people, especially if there's some projectile that you can dodge abusing this 1 second window. As a general rule of cock, if there's something that you can counter initiate, you should, because an offensive Nightmare is way easier to deal with than a defensive one. Trick number 2, if you are playing against an annoying caster like Tinker or Lina, then get this talent. Generally though, this should be your
your
talent
talent
tree.
tree. With the enfeebled talent, these guys need to get in a lot closer in team fights, and so they're a lot easier to catch with a grip or a nightmare. Trick number 3, you can end nightmare during Fiend's grip. So when inevitably your idiot teammate nightmares themselves by right-clicking somebody, you can whip them out while you're gripping. Nightmare, 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 nightmare.
You can't do that.